Greetings, Explorer families. This is Mr. Ike, the Executive Director of our Westlake Charter School. Families, as the end of the year approaches, I want to take a moment to celebrate our community during these incredibly unprecedented times. I would also like to share some of our best thinking about how school may look when we return in the fall on August 12th. Now, families, as I reflect back on the school year, there's so much to celebrate. In the fall, we had amazing events to launch the year, like a back to school night, a chili cook-off, and our fall festival. Our Olympic triathlon by itself was a huge success, and each of our classrooms in the fall were filled with joyful learning. Now, as a community, in the fall, we were celebrating for our innovation and authorized to expand our K-8 to high school. That's largely thanks to the collaborative spirit of each of us at Westlake Charter School. So who knew that that same collaborative spirit would gain us recognition once again this spring for our ability to recreate school in the midst of a global crisis? You know, while it's nobody's first choice, Westlake Charter School pivoted to distance learning, and our teachers have thoughtfully redesigned instruction, improving our practices week after week using Google Voice, Google Meets, Google Classroom, several methods to offer feedback, and adaptive platforms such as Lexia to keep our students engaged. And now that we're wrapping up the year, Westlake continues to demonstrate what is possible when school and community collaborate in so many ways. In just this past week, we've produced a virtual coffee talk that was super fun, a virtual open house, a virtual art show that was amazing, a beautiful 8th grade parade, and we're looking forward to a virtual 8th grade dinner, a virtual field day, and of course, ending the year with an amazing 8th grade virtual promotion ceremony. So to our entire community, including families, staff, and students, thank you. Thank you for your willingness to collaborate, remain flexible, and focus on the health and safety of our community, which has been the sole reason for our collective success this year. So, what happens next? So this week, our Westlake Charter School administrative team have virtually attended several meetings. We attended a webinar presentation from the California Department of Education and State Superintendent for Public Instruction, Tony Thurman. We attended a conference call with the Sacramento County Office of Education's Superintendent, Dave Gordon. We attended another conference call hosted by the California Charter Schools Association, which was filled with regional charter school leaders. And we attended the Natomas Unified School District's board meeting. Now, each of these meetings addressed state, regional, and local processes to assist planning for the fall. Now, coming up next are important information items that our team curated along the way that's helping us shape our thinking. So first, let's talk about health and safety and how that will guide planning for the fall. So this week, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention released guidelines to help schools reopen. Now, the CDC is one of the major operating components of the United States Department of Health and Human Services, and they are recommending frameworks on how entities like schools should make decisions based on local conditions. Now, the California Department of Public Health and the Sacramento County Public Health Department are each drafting and releasing guidelines for reopening schools. Now, there are two separate entities, one statewide, one county-wide, and because of this, the Sacramento County Superintendent of Education has acknowledged that these two plans are going to have to be cross-checked to ensure that they're in alignment. And this process may only happen after these two plans are eventually publicly released. So, each of these guidelines will impact logistical decisions that we make at Westlake Charter School, such as how many students can be on campus at one time, how might staff and students interact, and at what distance and in what quantity, what types of personal protective equipment such as cloth masks might be required for everyone on campus, or how will students travel around campus to ensure social distancing. Also things like how will schools operate without shared communal spaces like the cafeteria or the playground structures. Another great question is, how will food be distributed and eaten throughout the school day, respecting these guidelines? And also, how will schools ensure hand washing and hygiene protocols are used regularly? And then finally, how will schools appropriately clean classrooms to reduce the spread of germs? Okay, next, let's talk about how health and safety planning impacts the scheduling of school. Specific attention is being paid to the number of students who can be in class at any given time. Therefore, educators across the nation are grappling with a myriad of thoughts. So here are a few that I'd like to share. First is, if schools can only fill up to about 50% so we can adhere to social distancing, well, where do students go when they can't be on campus? Next is, okay, we have students on campus and off campus. How do students in class and students not in class remain at the same learning pace and have the same level of connectedness with the school community? Which leads us to the next piece, which is, how will schools rotate the opportunity for students to take turns coming on campus? And finally, I think we should talk about, how will we screen staff and students for health each day while entering campus, and how will arrival and dismissal be organized to protect the health of students, staff, and families? To help answer each of these questions, as well as the thousands of granular decisions that must be made to reopen schools for the first day, Westlake Charter School must work in unison with local, regional, and state leaders. Now, while our local team has been planning for weeks, our teachers, our staff, our administrative team have been working together, mapping out potential solutions to each of the identified problems. Our plans cannot be completed until we receive guidelines from our county and state officials. So we hope to be able to share our plans as soon as they are solidified. Now, according to the Sacramento County Office of Education Superintendent Dave Gordon, the Sacramento County Office of Education will be releasing their guidelines in early June. So once these guidelines have been produced, Westlake Charter School plans to follow the following outline. First, we will align our local plans with the Sacramento County Office of Education guidelines. Next, we will communicate with local charter leaders and the Natomas Unified School District leaders to make an effort to best align our plans with our local partners. Then Westlake Charter School will continue to communicate with the county leadership to ensure that the county and state plans are in alignment. And then Westlake Charter School hopes to communicate initial plans with our families as soon as mid-June, knowing that these plans may adjust as information evolves between June and August. Now, Westlake Charter School will communicate again with Westlake Charter School families in mid-July, about a month before the opening of school. Westlake Charter School anticipates opening school on time on August 12th, utilizing one or all of the following scenarios that I'll outline. Now, reopening school includes planning for multiple scenarios. So let's talk about scenario number one. At the national and state level, there are conversations regarding the challenges of safely reopening schools during a pandemic, while also grappling with the budget cuts caused by the economic fallout of this pandemic. So while California schools are facing the worst budget crisis in recent years, these schools must also plan for increased personal protective equipment, new technology to ensure that all families are able to engage in potential distance learning, and staffing appropriately to create safety procedures for re-entering campuses. So therefore, some schools may consider extending distance learning during some part of the fall. Now, this would allow schools to take more time to ensure that all plans are in place to reopen, as well as acquire the needed equipment, to reopen safely. Now, that's just scenario one. Scenario number two. So each local agency must create plans for physically returning to school while following the guidelines for social distancing. So Westlake Charter School has several iterations of these plans, and we will select our best plan once we have access to the state and county public health guidelines. Now, these plans include allowing cohorts of students on campus at alternating times. So some of these models at Westlake include maybe AM, PM shifts or alternating days. Other models that we've built out include alternating weeks or a combination of these options. So in scenario 2, our teachers will be teaching students in class as well as teaching those who are at home via distance learning. But this is a brand new configuration for schools and will take more time for our teachers to plan and facilitate and offer feedback to our students. And so therefore, each of our models in scenario 2, we're considering things like decreasing the length of the school day to allow for increased time for staff to personalize for students in class and at home. We're also considering reducing the number of physical days on campus to no more than 4 days per week. So this will allow for deeper cleaning as well as offer staff time to prepare and present information to students who are engaged in our classrooms as well as engaged through distance learning. So a lot of thought in scenario 2. Now, scenario 3, according to the Center for Disease Control guidelines and the anticipated recommendations from county and state officials, includes a return to school at 100% capacity, but not until a vaccine has been distributed or until our region has developed herd immunity. So this means that it may take 12 to 18 months minimum before we can expect to come back to school with full classrooms and the use of our cafeteria and our playgrounds. So as we work through scenarios 1 and 2, we must iteratively innovate steps toward scenario 3. We need to be thinking about things like, hey, if we cannot compete in sports after school until scenario 3, what can we offer students after school to keep them engaged and help them develop physically and social emotionally? We have to think about if our students are learning from home for some portion of each week until scenario 3, how will we ensure that students are learning and feeling connected? Questions like, what opportunities will there be for parents to continue to collaborate with Westlake Charter School through scenario 1 and 2 are at the forefront of our minds. We have lots to think about and a lot of iterative work to do, but families, as we head out to summer break, I wish that I could share with you the exact plan detailing how we'll return to school. But what I can promise is that we will communicate with our community as our team completes these plans. Regardless of the scenario, we will reopen school. Our students will be connected again with our amazing teachers and staff, and we will continue to stay connected as a community. Families, I hope you have a wonderful summer break. I thank you for an incredible year and your flexibility and perseverance throughout all of this. I hope that you each stay safe and healthy. And as always, let's explore.